Hari Hari. So we're on to text number 28 of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Now Arjuna begins to speak. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up." Krishna has deliberately placed the chariot of Arjuna in front of his closest friends and the dearest members of his family on both sides of the battlefield. He wants to make sure that Arjuna cannot escape the reality of the situation which he faces. He doesn't want Arjuna to be blinded by, distracted by his hatred of Duryodhana, his hatred of Dushasan, and so forth. He wants Arjuna to be confronted with the full enormity of what is about to take place. And therefore, he puts the chariot in front of his closest friends and the dearest members of his families on both sides. In the previous verse, we saw how Arjuna became overwhelmed with compassion. We explored that compassion has 4 facets, and compassion that is, or rather, when we are conditioned by, or when we have and we cling to and we hold on to attachments, then compassion becomes distorted. Whereas when we mature and are purified through bhakti and through the process of bhakti yoga, and unconditional love develops, the gratitude that arises and is experienced in those relationships automatically give birth to compassion on all 4 levels. So it is love and not attachment that is the issue here. When there is attachment, there is distortion. True compassion cannot manifest. The balance becomes out of whack. We become narrow-minded, narrowly focused on a few attachments to the exclusion of the other 4 levels of our existence, which also require that we interact with compassion. Bhakti, love, is the key. Our friends and family are the sources of our greatest pleasure, satisfaction, as well as our greatest pain and suffering. Both stem from friends, family, and relationships. This is actually the reason why humanity has such a difficult time with religion, because oftentimes religion is described as being a relationship between ourselves and a personal understanding or view of the Supreme, that the Supreme has individuality and personhood. And we have a hard time ascribing personhood to the Supreme because our greatest suffering comes at the hands of people. So to have some kind of relationship with the Supreme, when we know that our greatest harms, our greatest pain, our greatest traumas have come from relationships with people, we prefer that the Supreme be some impersonal, energetic spirit that does not have personhood, variety, or individuality. So we strip the supreme of personhood because of our traumas, because of our fears, because of our experience that personhood is the cause of our greatest suffering. So rather than face that suffering, rather than face the conditioning that it is our attachments that are the problem, we'd rather strip the supreme of personhood. No. The problem is our attachment, or our attachments, plural, because we have numerous attachments. An attachment is a belief. It is an erroneous belief that this circumstance, this person, this individual, this thing, this belief, this identity, whatever it may be, these things outside of ourselves are the source of happiness and satisfaction. If I have this person, if I hold this belief system, if I hang on to this identity, then I can experience satisfaction. I can experience meaning. I can experience wholeness. I can experience happiness. I can experience gratification on some level or another. It's a belief. An attachment is a belief, an erroneous belief. Because, and those of you who know me will have heard me recite this verse from the Upanishad numerous times. Om Purnamada Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevava Shishyate. Purna means complete. We are parts of the complete whole. And because we are parts of the complete whole, the Supreme, we are also complete in ourselves. We are complete individual beings, just as the Supreme is a complete individual being. Because we are complete, there is nothing that we require outside of us in order to experience complete wholeness. However, this impurity, this conditioning, is that we have this erroneous belief that we are incomplete and therefore require something outside of ourselves in order for us to become complete. This is an erroneous belief. And that's where attachments come from. This belief that we are incomplete puts us in a position where we then see all of these objects outside of ourselves, and we become attached to them. We try to hold on to them, believing erroneously that if we possess, if we have, if we keep, if we hold on to these attachments, we will become complete. So now we're holding on to these attachments, and what happens? It's an erroneous belief. These attachments are, by definition, temporary. So when they disappear, what happens? They are the cause of our greatest pain. So these impurities are attachments. This conditioning is this erroneous belief. Our friends and families are those things which give us the greatest satisfaction, sense of self, meaning outside of ourselves. They therefore cause the greatest pain in our lives. What is the solution? You know what I'm going to say. Love. Not what Hollywood, Bollywood talks about or describes as love. Love is bhakti, unconditional love. Unconditional love, and I'm going to use my favorite example, is Christ-like. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. He is being hammered to a cross, and yet still his sense of love and forgiveness is unchanged. It is not that he doesn't experience pain. No, he's bleeding all over the place. But despite the fact that he has been betrayed by one of his closest disciples, by he has been denied by another one of his closest disciples. Everyone is watching gleefully as he's being nailed to a cross. Still, he is not moved from love and forgiveness. That remains unchanged. That is bhakti. So when we mature in bhakti, when the creeper of bhakti matures, because we have the seed of devotion, the seed of bhakti is within the heart of each and every one of us. When that seed, when that creeper has matured, then bhakti is extended to every aspect of our existence. So while we'll still have beautiful, loving, not still, that's how we have beautiful, loving, unconditional relationships of appreciation and gratitude. When those relationships come, if they may go, because bhakti is eternal, the individual may go, but the love, the appreciation we have for the individual remain. So while there may be grief, because that individual is no longer part of our manifest existence, that grief is pure, that grief is real, that grief is not that we are somehow less than because they are gone, because we are not less than, we are purna, we are complete. But we can still miss the association that we had in their presence. So our grief is one of pure experience of the love that we've had, rather than it being a fearful, insecurity based lamentation that we are somehow less than because of their disappearance, because they have left us, because they have moved on, because they have divorced us, because they have died, whatever the case may be. So the antidote, no, not the antidote. The nectar, the life-giving amrit, nectar of life, of existence, is love, bhakti. We are therefore then able to experience deep, passionate, true, loving relationships without fear that when those relationships, or if those relationships change in whatever way, we are still perfectly complete, while we can miss their association in our present manifest lives. But Arjuna, you see, is focused on an attachment. Because he's focused on attachments, he's focused on the erroneous belief that the only way he's going to enjoy life in this world is if his friends and families are with him. You will see in the coming verses, Arjuna will literally say, why should I have this kingdom if for the very persons for whom I want this kingdom are dead? What's the point? He's attached. And therefore, Krishna will say in the second chapter, how, my dear son of Kunti, who is one of the foremost bhakti yogis of all, how is it that the son of Kunti has fallen into the trap of attachments? Hari Hari.